of the Replacement Love podcast on video. First time in history, 28th episode on Spotify. Chris, I'm pumped. We got a huge episode today. First time in history for you guys. It's going to be on YouTube. Guys, check it out. We got a lot going on today. My Yankees can't hit, but today they actually went 12-6. 12-6 powered by Rizzo, Judge, Torres, all the guys coming in. Torres with that big home run. Volpe heats up. Judge with that birthday double, drives in 3. Happy 31st birthday, Aaron Judge. Chris, let me see your Mariners. Rep those Mariners. Oh yeah, Chris, how are you today?
I mean, considering the double tap I got from the Seattle Mariners today, with the Robbie Ray news that we'll get to here in a little bit, and then also the Mariners loss, I'm good. Outside of those couple of things, I'm good, all things considered.
That's tough, Chris. That's a lot to take in. You got your Mariners losing. They almost won. Julio struck out.
Yeah, they
So
blew the lead. They got 5 runs after being down 2-0, and that was it. And then the Phillies literally just chipped away like a run here and there until they came back and won it.
I mean, now you lost your ace for the year. Not your ace, but your 1-2 punches now out for the year. Guys, big news. I'm sure most of you have heard it. Robbie Ray out for the year with a right flexor surgery. He's out for the season. Chris, very disappointing for you guys. Obviously, the 6-man rotation heading into the year. Now you lost your 1-2 punch with Castillo and Robbie Ray, who is a former Cy Young winner back in 2021. He made just one start, 8.10 ERA this year. So Chris, this is obviously disappointing. So what are the Mariners doing now with Ray after the year?
Yeah, definitely a big blow, and he's not somebody that you can just. I mean, outside of a trade, you're not going to be able to replace him just with one guy. It's going to be a team effort that's going to have to pick everything else up. I mean, you talked about Ray's their number 2 pitcher, Castillo's obviously their ace, but I mean that 1-2 punch, and then you have Gilbert as the number 3, Kirby is 4. Like that's a really great 1 through 4. Then, coming into the season, there was a lot of talk about who was going to win that 5th spot. Was it going to be Marco Gonzalez? Was it going to be Chris Flexen? Or might it be one of the rookies that they have in the minors that could, potentially win it out of spring training? So obviously Marco won it, and then they moved Flexen to the pen. And now with Ray's injury, Flexen was the first guy to come out of the pen and take Ray's starts. And he's not been good at all. I mean, his performance looks worthy enough to ship him back over to the Korean Baseball League.
Ooh, I'll take.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been good. So right now, the Mariners' best course of action is to get Flexen, get that ship righted, and if he can get back to being just an average pitcher, it'll be okay. They've got enough pitching depth in that rotation, like I mentioned. They've with Kirby and Gilbert and Marco, and Castillo, they've got enough in there to be just fine, especially with Flexen being near the back end of it. And then, if he still can't get it righted, you can look at a couple of their youngsters that they've got in the minors, in Bryce Miller and then Emerson Hancock. Now, both of those guys, unfortunately, have not had great starts to the season. It is early, so there's still a lot of time to be patient with them, and obviously they're still young in their careers and everything as well. But you would like to see them, kind of performing a little bit better in the minors. But if they can kind of get hot, they may force their way up, especially if Flexen continues to struggle. And then you could also go back to Tommy Malone, who had a spot start for the Mariners when Marco Gonzalez left the team to be with his wife to give birth to their second child now. So congratulations to Marco and his family. But Tommy Malone could be a candidate if Flexen continues to struggle. And then obviously there's the free agent wire, who the headline name there is Madison Bumgarner. But I don't think the Mariners are at that desperate level of them.
Going back on that.
I don't think they're there to get Mad Bum or anything like that. So obviously Jerry DePoto is nicknamed Trader Jerry, so you can't rule out the possibility of him trading for another starter. But they've got some options. I would say the silver lining is if we're going to have a big injury blow to the team. I'm kind of glad it's to the starting pitching where they have a lot of depth at.
I mean, Chris, if you're gonna take Madison Bumgarner as an option, then I mean, you're really only thinking of Madison Bumgarner if you're really that desperate in fantasy. If you're really in a deep league and you have that many roster spots to fill up, that you could throw on Mad Bum, because he's probably one of the worst pitchers in baseball. But
Yeah.
I hear
I
that.
mean, the thing is with Dipoto, he likes reclamation projects. I mean, Chris Flexen was a reclamation project. It worked out well for a season, and he did well last year when he got moved into the bullpen as well. So, could Dipoto look at what Madison Bumgarner did, talk with the pitching coaches and the scouts, talent evaluators, and say, listen, we could probably get Bumgarner to be not what he used to be in San Francisco or even what he was like in his first year or two, or even last year with Arizona, but we could get him to be a guy who can give us some length in games. Get us. He may not be able to strike out as many guys as we want him to or anything, but if he can get through and just kind of pitch, be a pitcher, it could be something that could happen. Again, I think that's probably Plan Z. Um, just because I think there's a lot that needs to go in to get Bumgarner righted. But I think there are better options than going with him. But he is, a name on the free agent market that the Mariners could turn to if they are desperate.
So, Chris, we were talking about the impact of Ray and now his absence for the rest of the season. And you were talking about the rotation, and now that has a big void. There's a big gap in between Castillo and then Gonzalez, Gilbert, Kirby, and Flexen, obviously. And, Flexen's coming out struggling. He's been scuffling a little bit. He's got that 8.86 ERA.
Jeez.
I can't even, I have to take a minute just to, internalize that. 8.86? That's like mad bum ready. Okay, either way, just you got that four-man rotation. You got those four guys locked in. They've come out hot right now. You got Castillo doing Luis Castillo stuff. He's doing that Cy Young dances, getting fancy for us.
Mhm.
Gonzalez, Gilbert, Kirby, all three punches. We saw a little bit from Logan Gilbert tonight,
Mhm.
and Flexen is obviously the big question. You were talking about Tommy Malone, but I'm a big fan of bullpen games.
Mhm.
So, Chris, you guys have a nice bullpen, and you were talking about, in case Flexen continues to struggle, who would be that replacement? And you were talking about Tommy Malone. There are other guys in the bullpen. We're talking about maybe Paul Sewald can contribute a couple of innings. Trevor Gott, Matt Brass, the long relievers who are capable of pitching long relievers. So, what are you thinking about maybe converting and maybe assembling a bullpen game as the fifth start in case Flexen continues to struggle? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Mariners' plan is probably to get Flexen back into form of him being a traditional starter of going at least 6 innings and then turning it over to the pen. But something that kind of was, if you watch his last start, he was pretty good through I think the first 4, maybe 5 innings, and then it just kind of fell apart on him. So maybe he, if they can't get him to get to that 6th inning, maybe he is, that designated bullpen starter where okay. Flexen's going to go max 4 innings, maybe five, if we're lucky or if it's a good day or something like that. But we're going to, it's basically going to be Flexen for as long as we feel good about him. And then we're going to turn over the pen, have the pen right, take it home. But in doing that, you are going to burn some arms in the pen. And that could be costly, especially if you have one of the first four starters get lit up or have to go short, then it really compounds everything because now you're looking at, okay, we burned a bunch of bullpen arms because, we're down a starter. So I think plan A is get Flexen Rider to being a traditional starter. And plan B would be, okay, he's going to give us 4 innings and then we're going to turn it to the pen. Maybe he gives us 5 innings and then turn it to the pen, but something like that. And then, I don't know, plan C is maybe a call up to a rookie or try a different guy to be the starter. But I think that's kind of what the plan is for, or what the thinking is for the Mariners right now. Is like let's get Flexen going and see if we can, if that can work.
I think that you're losing that 1-2 punch. You're losing Castillo, you're losing Ray, and for me at least, it's tough putting together for the average team. You're usually by the time you're at the fourth, fifth starter, it's usually like, hey, they can go 6, 7 innings. Maybe they'll give up three, 2 or 3 runs. They're obviously not frontline starters, but for the average team, if we're not talking about the Astros who have a ton of depth. We're not talking about Dodgers also have a ton of depth. We're also, I mean, the Mariners also have a ton of depth. I'm talking about your average team. It's usually pretty difficult to fill in that fourth, fifth role if those design pitchers who are in that fourth, fifth role continue to struggle. And that's a guy like Flexen. You're talking about Chris Flexen, and it's hard because by the time we come around for agency, the Mariners already had their rotation locked in. They had
Mhm.
Castillo, they had Ray, they got Castillo from last year, they got Kirby, and all the guys you mentioned. So I mean, for me at least, getting Flexen is probably the best option, even though you know more than the Mariners than I do. But it's hard getting that fifth man to stabilize at least. From longevity wise, usually fifth starters they it depends on the team really. It's hard to say for every team, but if you're a fifth starter, it's like, hey, we know that you can go out and throw 6, 7 innings. We're not, you're capable of it. You have the arm strength to last that long. You can throw 80, 85 pitches, give up 3, 4 runs. We're fine with that because that means our bullpen can back you up. That's why I'm a big fan of bullpen because then you transition to the bullpen. We say, hey, the fifth starter, he comes out, throws 4 or 5 innings, gives us 3 runs, but we have the bullpen to back it up. That's when
Mhm.
that's when Matt Brash steps in. That's when Paul Sewell steps in.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean the Mariners definitely have a deep bullpen and a good bullpen. I think your end of the bullpen guys are going to be Paul Sewell, Andres Munoz, who's currently out with an injury, but should be back here in the next, I don't know, week or so, and Matt Brash, and then Diego Castillo. I think those are your final four guys in there. Obviously, the closer is going to be Sewell right now, if not Munoz, and then Brash, and then Castillo. So you've got that. You've got some young players that are stepping up in Justin Topa, and then their free agent signing of Trevor Gott is actually doing quite well so far.
Nice sign.
Yeah, I gave a lot
Not
of grief.
bad.
Yeah, I will admit I gave a lot of grief and was not a fan of it, but so far, Gott is making me look foolish. I mean, but that's not hard to do or anything. So yeah, there are some options for them in there in that pen. Um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do, and obviously it all comes down to what Flexen can do. If Flexen can take care of business, the Mariners will be fine. But if he can't, that's when things will get a little bit more interesting for them. But moving over to some exciting news, Brian Reynolds signed a big deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates, a 8-year, $106.75 million contract extension with them. And Rafal, give us your thoughts on this big signing for the Pirates.
So Brian Reynolds, good for you, man. Breaking in the dough. Chris, that big 8-year deal, locking in a marquee figure in the Pittsburgh organization, a huge, huge deal. Obviously, he had all of those trades. Everyone was bringing up these trade ideas. He was a huge talk. He was probably the biggest talk over the offseason. Gleyber Torres, question mark, maybe would have been traded over him, but it was a
Mhm.
big asking price. The Pirates were asking for a lot. The Pirates were asking for Volpe. They were asking for Peraza, either one of them, plus Jason Dominguez. That's a big asking price. But Volpe, a lot of conspiracies around Volpe, not Volpe, Brian Reynolds. A lot of conspiracies about Reynolds over the offseason. Will he be traded? Will he be not? He sticks with in Pittsburgh. The big 8-year deal, the club option for 2031, actually. An 844 career OPS hitter, 128 OPS plus with park adjusted factors and all that fun stuff. 79 career home runs, 282 batting average, 257 RBIs. Brian Reynolds, one of the best center fielders in the game, actually.
Mhm.
And I think for the Pirates, your locking in your marquee guy, because now the Pirates are at least assured an all-star player, an all-star caliber player for another 7 years. So the Pirates get their guy. And I think it's early in the season, and we're seeing the Pirates. The Pirates are 17-8. They're first in the NL Central. Who would have thought heading into this season that the Pittsburgh Pirates would be in first place? I definitely didn't think that, but everything is clicking right now for the Pirates. You're seeing pretty much everyone on their lineup contribute. You're seeing Brian Hayes do his thing in the hot corner. Offensively, he's going to step it up a little bit. We haven't seen that since he was brought up. Really, he's never been really praised for his offensive prowess. That's never really been something of his forte, I would say. Carl Santana's bringing some offensive contribution. His presence, obviously, is the veteran guy. Brian Reynolds doing Brian Reynolds things. Kutch, the veteran dude, 5 homers already. G1 Bay, the defensive monstrosity in the outfield center. He's doing his thing. Rodolfo Castro, you got Connor Joe. Jason DeLay is surprised this year. He's got 967 OPS through 38 at bats, and their rotation, their pitching has been dominating. They're pitching Mitch Keller. We're seeing a potential breakout year for Mitch Keller, the Mitch Keller that has been really struggling the past couple seasons, and as of now, where the way he's pitched in his first 5 starts, he has 4 quality starts, 29 and 2/3 of it, and he's got a 1.25 WHIP, 3.65 ERA. Johan Oviedo making an impression. Ronci Contreras had a nice start today. Closed out the Dodgers. Lights out. Dodgers take the fall 8-1. Vince Velasquez and Rachel are kind of middling, but overall, the Pirates are really coming out hot. Chris, obviously, locking in Reynolds is very vital, especially for the Pirates' future. But other than that and the way that they're performing, how do you think this will impact in a few years down the line?
Yeah, so I mean, it's it's good. The Pirates have been, and I have some friends that are Pirates fans. So obviously, we
Sorry.
both live here in Indianapolis, and you know the Pirates AAA team is the Indianapolis Indians here. So we get to see a lot of their prospects that come through before they make it to the majors. So you know, we do have some conversations about the big league club, but you know, for them, you know, when they brought up O'Neill Cruz, when they brought up Brian Hayes and Mitch Keller and those guys, and they traded and got Rones Contreras, for me, kind of on the outside of the fandom looking in, I was like, oh, that's great moves, good, stuff to get excited about. And they were kind of like, yeah, we'll see. You know, it's another year of us selling off our star player to get prospects with the message of wait till next year or wait till a few years down the road kind of thing. So like it just gets old, and they've kind of had that message sent to them for I don't know, probably like a decade now. So Brian Reynolds is the guy that was always thought that they would build around, and this contract that he signed now just kind of cements that thought in stone that he is the guy they're going to build around. You've got O'Neill Cruz, who once he heals from his fractured leg should be all right. He definitely is very exciting and a player that will put a lot of fans in the stands, and he seems to make every sort of statcast metric out there just from the exit velocities and the throws he makes from shortstop and everything like that. Like he's just kind of unreal. And then you've got Brian Hayes. So like you've got a lot of pieces in place for the Pirates to start to be building and to start to get some things moving them in the right direction, getting back into the playoff contention, and kind of have that light at the end of the tunnel that the organization has been preaching to their fan base. Like the fans can now actually have something to kind of hold on to and say, okay, you've been telling this, and now we've actually seen some results here. So great for them. This start is that they are on is incredible. There is a pirate beat writer that I follow on Twitter, who at the beginning of the season was all about the Pirates being great and having a great season and everything. And I'll be honest, like I was kind of like, there's no way that is going to come true. Like the Pirates are not going to be that good. I want to say I think he had him picked for like 77 wins on the year, and I was like, no, not a chance. Like they had no rotation. You had Cruz, who didn't have a great rookie year, but you obviously saw the tools there. Brian Hayes still hadn't really lived up to the potential. And then you had Brian Reynolds, who the question with him was going to be, how much longer would he be in a Pittsburgh uniform? So the Pirates are looking good. I don't know if they can keep it up. I think they're getting a lot of key contributions at the right times, which is really what you need in baseball. But can you do it over the course of a full season? I don't know. I really don't know, but I would not bet on it. And the Pirates fans, I'm sorry, enjoy this, but and enjoy the Brian Reynolds signing because everything's moving in the right direction for you guys.
The Pirates are playing good baseball,
Mhm.
and I don't have to agree with you on this, Chris. I think it's too early to tell because the Brewers are right behind them, and they're only a couple games behind them, and they're doing Brew Crew things in Milwaukee. But the Pirates sustaining this type of streak, I'm not so certain that they can keep us up, considering that they've got a lot of young guys in the organization, especially their farm system as well.
Mhm.
Which that'll be for another time, but they do have an exciting organization headlined by Termarr Johnson and Henry Davis, Quinn Priester, who is AAA currently. But
Mhm.
overall, I think it's exciting for Pirates fans who haven't seen much success in Pittsburgh. And although they have a nice stadium, PNC is really nice, by the way. If you're checking out PNC,
I've not been there. I've heard a
gotta
lot of great
gotta
things
hit it
on
up
it
there.
about the stadium. It is something that I think I want to go check out.
It's very
It's not,
nice.
yeah, it's not too far of a drive. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about PNC Park.
Yeah, so I think a couple years ago, me and my family went up to I think it was I don't know if went to somewhere in Pennsylvania, whatever. So Pittsburgh was a couple of hours away. I think it was like hour and a half drive. So we went to a Pirates game. I actually caught a ball. My first MLB ball was there. I think it was the
Nice.
Nationals because I remember as Drupal Cabrera. Remember he was like third base. I think we were sitting third base side. I was just sitting in my seat. I was like, no way, I'm getting this ball. So I like waved my glove up. I was like, oh, that's Drupal, that's Drupal. And then all of a sudden I see the ball coming towards me. I'm like, there's no way it's coming towards me. So I put my glove out, and the next thing you know, it's in my hand. So I was like, okay. And listen, I got my first ball. So I kind of like PNC Park, good vibes there. So I
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, that the gate, that kind of I think that's like that's why people go to PNC Park because they have that. It's like a yellow gate.
Mhm.
You see across like right by the batter's eye. If you set home plate, if you look straight away, you see. I don't know if you saw this before, but PNC has like a bridge that you
Yeah.
can see from the stadium itself. So once
Yep.
you're sitting, like if you're behind the home plate, you have a batter's eye view straight, and you see. So I think that's the main attraction there. But PNC Park is definitely very nice. Definitely recommend it for you guys out there. But for the main event of our show, let's get this going. Main event of our show. A little sad because it just means that teams are underperforming. So today's topic is teams that are underperforming in each division. So you got my Yanks underperforming. You got those Mariners underperforming. Sorry, Chris, for the shout out. The Mariners need to start hitting.
Yeah.
Offense, you got pitching to step up, even though the pitching is doing quite well. You got that 3 point, you got 10th in ERA, but just overall not coming with big wins. But first, in the AL East, sorry Yankees, but I gotta go with the Yankees. Yankees are underperforming.
Mhm.
It's an understatement considering that they're 14-11, and they are over 500, but they're fourth in the AL East, behind the Orioles, behind the Blue Jays, behind the Rays, who just can't stop winning. 20 wins, first win to 20 wins. The Rays can't stop winning, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do by Shane McClanahan doing Cy Young things. There's nothing I can do about Wander Franco being the advanced hitter and one of the most dynamic players in baseball. And he's really coming out doing everything really to start of the season. But the Yankees, just to throw some stats out here, just to substantiate things: 19th in OPS, 700 OPS. Come on, Yankees. 17th in runs, 108 runs scored, 31 homers. They're eighth in homers. That's not too bad, but that's pretty much because the Yankees are contingent on the long ball, and all they do is mash home runs. You got Judge with 6. You got Stanton's got a few. Volpe's got a few. Torres has got a couple. LeMahieu's got 3 or 4. And the funny thing is that the Yankees only lost one series, and that was to the Twins this past series. Sorry, not even the Yankees didn't lose the series yet. They lost the first time, by the way, Chris. First
Hmm.
time since I forgot what year, 2004, 2001. Forgot first time. First time that the Yankees have lost a season series to the
Yeah.
Twins since the early 2000s. So I wasn't even alive then. That when the Yankees lost season series to the Twins. So happy for the Twins. You guys take the season series from my Yanks, which is obviously disappointing. But back to underperformance rotation wise and pitching wise, Yankees have not been underperforming. They're third in ERA with a 3.36 ERA. So I think it's more of the offense, and the offense has really been streaky. And with Stanton out, with Bader out, obviously Bader hasn't played. He's coming back soon. Bader's been out. Stanton, they've been very precautious with him with his injury history, and he seems to be has some sort of he seems to sustain some sort of injury every day at this point, and the dude can't stay healthy. But when he's healthy, he's obviously a big contributor at the plate. And I think the offense really needs to pick things up. Obviously, today we saw that Yankees pull away with a win 12-6, powered by Volpe, Rizzo, Torres with that long home run. 12-6 Yankees power with come away with a win. But in the past week or so, the Yankees offense has really been quiet. And that's kind of like an indication to Brian Cashman, like, hey, you really didn't make so many additions to the offseason. And I think that's kind of true because lineup wise, the Yankees, Cashman did not make any additions except for picking up Franchi Cordero from waivers. If you, but he's been a nice addition. He's got 4 homers. He's hit a cold streak a little bit, but they called up Peraza, they called up Volpe, but other than that, they made no additions. This is kind of translating now because now they're just the Yankees that they were without Judge. Judge, obviously, he had a nice day today, and his 31st birthday. Happy birthday, Aaron Judge, guys! 31st birthday. But getting back to my main point. The Yankees haven't underperformed. The offense is not hitting. Pitching wise, thankfully, the rotation has held up despite Rodon being out, Sevi being out, and obviously Montas expected to miss the entirety of the season. But Chris, who is your AL East underperforming team?
Oh, it's got to be the Yankees. I mean, they're
Of
three
course.
games over 500. They're 6 games back in the AL East right now. So, yeah, for me, they're not producing the runs like you kind of expect from them. I mean, going into the season, a lot of people were expecting the AL East to be one of the toughest divisions, if not the toughest division in baseball, and it is living up to that. You've got the Rays, Orioles, Blue Jays, and Yankees all by 500, all competing for the AL East. And quite frankly, the Rays are the most impressive team in the league right now. They're 20-5. They're 14-2 at home. They've only lost 2 games at home. There's no other team in the league who has lost, who has that kind of home record. I mean, Blue Jays are 7-2 at home, but it's just they are winning games and they are exceeding expectations, if that's even possible, considering people were expecting the Rays to compete for an AL East crown and it's definitely compete for the playoffs. But when you factor in that Tyler Glasnow has yet to throw a pitch this season, and then Shane Baz is still out with injury, yeah, it is very impressive that they're getting by on what they're able to do. So, good for the Rays. The Yankees are unfortunately the underperforming team for the AL East. My underperforming team for the AL Central is going to be the Chicago White Sox. I
Ooh,
mean, they're a team that I know when we talked um, about teams that could make it into the playoffs that weren't there last year. We talked about the White Sox having a lot of star power and, maybe not so much depth. And if injuries struck, they could be in a world of hurt. We did think they had a little bit more depth this season than they did last year, but they're in their last 10 games, they're 1-9. They're 7-18 on the year. The division is, from the AL side, one of the weakest in the AL. I mean, the Twins are the only team that's above 500, and they're 14-11. The Guardians sit in second place. They're 12-13. The Detroit Tigers are in third place at 9-14. They're 3 games ahead of the Chicago White Sox. I did not have the Tigers being anywhere above fourth place in the division. So the fact that they're in third and the White Sox are, just doing anything that people were expecting for them. I gotta go with the White Sox. But Rafal, who's your underperformer for the AL East or AL Central?
Guess what, Chris? You are going to be surprised here because for the first time in Replace Level podcast history, Chris Phillips and Rafael Nagorski have agreed on consecutive things.
Way to go.
Makes you
History,
deserve a round of
history.
applause because we don't see this too often, honestly. So yes, Chris, the White Sox are underperforming, and they are, just to give you some stats, like I did for the Yankees, 28th in OPS, 652. Only hit 23 home runs. They're 23rd. They are 23rd in runs, not only 96 runs, and it's the rotation. The rotation is killing them. That is really what's been derailing them all year, even though it's early into the season. We're seeing Giolito, we're seeing Lynn, Cease, Copa, and Clevenger all have over 4 ERAs to start off the season. 5.62 collective ERA. They're 29th in ERA. And I just think for a team that such a high caliber, and the fact that they're only behind ahead of the Oakland A's, who are probably the dead last team and will be the dead last team for the rest of the season, and they pretty much have nothing going for them. So for them moving to Las Vegas, so that's something exciting, but the White Sox have really struggled, and I think you can really attribute that to the rotation. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of their rotation, a lot of the firepower really struggle. We're seeing Jolito, who's over 4 ERA, 4.50. He's made 5 starts. Lance Lynn, again, struggling, 7.52 ERA. We're seeing Dylan Cease being Dylan Cease, still doing Dylan Cease stuff. He was a runner-up for the Cy Young last year. Obviously fell to Verlander, but he had that 2. He has this 2.73 ERA, leads the team in WHIP, at least qualifying starters. He's got that 1.118 WHIP. Kopech is struggling, 7.01 ERA. And then you got Clevenger, who had those allegations over the offseason, but cleared that up. And he's pitching again, but he has got that 4.81 ERA. So I really think that their pitching really needs to step it up. And offensively as well, they're typical contributors, and their guys are not hitting. Benny from the Yankees, sadly, the Yankees did yield Andrew Benintendi over the offseason. He signed a big deal with the White Sox for 5 years, but he's doing Benny stuff. He's got that 700 OPS, but he's batting 295. He is a high OBP hitter, and Luis Robert is really not hitting. Vaughn is, after the breakout here last year, he's also struggling. He's got that 236 average. Then you got Elvis Andrews, Grandal, both struggling. Eloy Jimenez is completely out of character. He's got that 172 average, and Tim Anderson is being Tim Anderson. He's got that 731 OPS, but overall, the White Sox really need to bring things together, because last year we saw a White Sox team that obviously fell short in the playoffs, but obviously capable of doing more than expected, and they have the pieces to mold a contending team. But now it's just about executing, and that's not what they've been doing. They just got swept by the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays are hot, and it's not to say it's an easy matchup, but I just think that the White Sox really need to improve. So on to the AL West, Chris. I think we both know who's underperforming in the AL West.
I mean, we'll just make it 3 for 3 here.
We can skip it if you want. I'm fine skipping it, but I can't skip it because you're already with my Yanks. So I got to get back at you here. So underperforming,
Okay.
Chris, you already know, but the Seattle Mariners, we can say they've been underperforming.
Yeah.
They are currently 11-13. They just fell short after a closely contested game. They fell short 6-5 to the Phillies, and they've been underperforming. Let's get into the stats and maybe kind of figure out why the Mariners are struggling. So let's just give you guys some stats. Hitting wise, the Mariners have actually not been bad. Offensively, the Mariners at least better than the a little drop better than actually worse than the Yankees. 688 OPS. Home run wise, they've been pretty bad, honestly. Um, Home run wise, they have hit a total of just kind of pulling up. They've hit a total of 26 home runs. So that needs to start uh, manifesting a little more. Looking to see a little more out of Eugenio Suarez. Julio, obviously, who just broke his over, I think it's over 16 slump. Chris, maybe you can validate that. It's over 16 slump, something like that, after that home run today. And pitching wise, I think I mentioned earlier before, but pitching wise, they've actually been solid. The 3.81 ERA, 10th, ranking 10th amongst all 30 major league teams. But Chris, you know the Mariners better than me. What is going on with your Mariners?
I mean, they a lot of their concern going into the season was that they did not add enough bats this offseason, and it's showing. I mean, you've got Ty France doing Ty France things. You've got Julio, unfortunately, struggling right now. You alluded to his hitless streak that he just snapped with that home run. So hopefully he can get on a roll and get back to doing what we saw him do last year, that won him Rookie of the Year. A surprise is Jared Kelnick finally coming through on all that hype and potential. I mean, he's currently batting 342. I mean, that's not going to stay that way all year long. But I mean, he's hitting the ball. He's hitting the ball with authority, and it's everything looks legit on him. But Teoscar Hernandez is kind of struggling. He's doing all right, batting 244, 6 home runs, 15 RBIs. Eugenio Suarez hitting 261, which is high for him, but it is nice to see. But the thing is, they're not kind of producing when they need to or anything like that. I mean, they're just their other guys aren't getting on base. Colton Wong has been abysmal. I mean, there's enough of a fan base out there that is calling for Adam Frazier to come back. They'd rather have him than Colton Wong, and Frazier was terrible last year. So, they don't have a DH. Their plan was not to have somebody specific be a DH. They wanted to rotate guys through the DH spot to help keep, their regulars fresh. But AJ Pollock has kind of been their main guy right now, and he's not hitting. They tried out Cooper Homer for a bit. He's not hitting. They sent him down. Tom Murphy, their backup catcher, is not doing anything at all. Tommy La Stella is not hitting as well. I mean, a guy that's kind of come out of nowhere is Jose Caballero, who's hitting 214. And it's kind of been their main guy off the bench that's actually been somewhat productive. That's nice to see, but we just need some more guys to hit the ball. Pitching wise, starting rotation's been fine, bullpen's been fine. I'm not too worried about that, but it's really just coming down to the offense. I mean, this is now marks the second consecutive game that they scored 5 runs in, so maybe the offense is starting to wake up and things can start to get rolling, and pitchers don't have to feel like they need to go and pitch a shutout or a no-hit ball every time they take the mound. So we'll see. It's early. It's still very early, but it's definitely not the start any Mariners fans were expecting, with them sitting in fourth place in the AL West, just above the Oakland A's. I mean, I think that just sums it up right there. They're above the Oakland A's for the AL West. Yeah, awful, awful, awful. All right, we got to move on to the NL here before I start to cry over how bad this Mariners start is. So, moving over to
Anything else
the
you want to add?
do what?
Get everything else in right now before we stop making funny Mariners.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I can take it anymore. Things happen in threes, they say, and I've got two with the Robbie Ray and the loss tonight. I don't want a third one to
You've
go
taken
down.
enough, Chris. I'll let you go.
All right, so the NL East, we've got from my team, the team the Mariners played tonight, the Philadelphia Phillies. They're coming off a World Series appearance, and they made some moves this offseason to kind of bolster their bullpen, which was a big concern for them last year. So there was some thought with their rotation and the offense that they have that they could, challenge for the NL East again. I think most people around baseball and fans of baseball were going to say the Braves, the Mets, the Phillies are probably going to be one of the three teams that's going to win that NL East. And right now, the Braves are in first place at 17-8, followed by the Mets at 14-11, and then you've got the Marlins and Phillies at 12-13. They're both 5 games back. And for me, it's more that the Phillies just kind of getting off to a slow start. They did sign Trey Turner as well to help that offense. They are without Bryce Harper and they lost Reese Hoskins at the beginning of the year, but there was a lot of expectations of them to be good, and they still have enough pieces around it. They should still be winning some games. So for the fact of them being a game under 500 and out of the other teams in the NL East with expectations, I've got to pick the Phillies. So Rufal, are we gonna go 4 for 4 here, or are we gonna have our first disagreement?
Okay, Chris. I think this has to be a record. We can't stop agreeing. So I don't know what's going on, but again, the Phillies. Yes, the Phillies are underperforming. Chris, 12-13. Although they just okay, I'm not gonna say what they just did. They may have just beat the Mariners, but
Yeah.
okay, Chris, I have to leave you alone. Okay, so talking about the Phillies, your Phillies, Philadelphia Phillies, we got Brandon Marsh, who has a 351 average. Brandon Marsh, the guy who is really just a fielder, the guy who has some of the nicest hair in baseball.
I mean, is he trying out for Duck Dynasty?
I mean, we may as well have him try out at this point. He's got a 1.138 OPS. Through
Jeez.
74 at bats, Brandon Marsh has been the center of attention for the Phillies offense. Obviously,
Mhm.
Castellanos has been streaking recently, 927 OPS. He's got that 16 RBIs. Bohm has been hitting as well, 20 RBIs. And I really think that they really need to come and they need to close out closely contested games. And their rotation has also struggled a lot. Nola's been struggling. It's not something you expected. Nola's pre-rankings heading the season, he was a definitely top 20 pitcher in baseball. Billy Falter, a uh, kind of a surprising addition to the rotation, but he's been middling, and Wheeler's not been Zach Wheeler at all. He did have a nice start this past start. Taiwan Walker has been getting beaten up, although stuff has like nice. That changeup is spicy. He's got a nice changeup going for him this year, but he's been struggling. And Matt Strom has really made a nice contribution. He's made 4 starts. He's got a 3 ERA. No, he actually hasn't. He wasn't awarded any quality starts at any of those starts, but he's thrown 18 innings of 6-run ball, 27 strikeouts, and he's kind of been the most dominant pitcher, honestly, I would say, out of this pitching staff. And I think that's kind of the X factor here, getting that pitching staff right, and that's not what they've been doing. So I think the Phillies just really need to get together the rhythm, and maybe getting ahead of your Mariners can maybe give them a step in the right direction. So again, your Phillies need to step it up. Sorry, Phillies fans, and I do know a couple of Phillies fans, and I'm guessing I'm certain that they know their team's underperforming. Next, on to the NL Central. I'm pretty sure we all can agree on this, unless Chris, if we can sustain our consecutive streak of agreeing with each other, I'm pretty sure the Cardinals can continue that. The St. Louis Cardinals have really been coming out the gates, and they've really been struggling. And they're one of those teams that they've always been in contention in the NL Central. And I think at this point, they've got a heap of injuries. This is already coming out of the start of the season. They got Mad Bum, who came out and sustained an injury, and now he's out for a couple more starts. The Cardinals are currently 9-15 in the NL Central. Offensively, I think is they haven't been too bad offensively. Their guys are doing guy things. Nato, Goldie, Contreras, Gorman, Tommy Edman, Jordan Walker, who actually just got assigned to Triple A, and then Brendan Donovan, Tyler O'Neill. But something that's a little intriguing to me about the Cardinals, they've got a nice collage of outfield. They got a ton of outfield depth. You got O'Neill, you got Walker. They just got promoted. You got Burleson, Carlson, Newbar, and Juan Yepes. So they got a lot of depth outfield wise. I think Oliver Marmol was discussing what they would do and how it would just be a platoon, because he was talking about how he doesn't want to give any of them less amount of appearances because he feels that they're all capable of going out there every day and doing a job. But I think again, I think the teams that we're discussing, it's been coming to the pitching, and again, the Cardinals pitching has been struggling, and that's definitely a big factor here because Montgomery, Flaherty, Michaelis, Whitford, and Matt's obviously with Wainwright out. You got Montgomery and Flaherty have been they look solid already and to open the season, but Michaelis and Whitford have not looked solid. Matt's as well. The two lefties, Montgomery, obviously last year he really broke out when he got swapped from St. Louis to New York, but I think getting him on track is, and he's been on track to open the year, 3.81 ERA. But Michaelis, Whitford, Matz, the back end of the rotation is really where things have gone south, Chris. So I think that's where we can say that that's why the Cardinals are struggling. So, Chris, could we add another name to the agreement?
It's 5 for 5, man. I mean, we are on a roll here. We've got that our minds are synced up or something. I don't know, but I mean, it can't for a team for the NL Central, it can't be any other team than the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cincinnati Reds are currently ahead of them at 10 and 15. Um, and you just touched on it. Jordan Walker got sent down. What are the Cardinals doing? I mean, he's one of their top prospects. He's hitting too. I mean, it's not like he's struggling. So like, oh, he's struggling, so we want to set him down, like get his confidence back. No, the guy's performing well at the major league level. I mean, he's he's hitting the ball. Like I don't get it. The home runs aren't there. I know he's kind of billed to have some home run power and everything like that. But I mean, they just sent him down for Taylor Motter, who I believe they just DFA'd a few days ago or a week ago or something like that. Um, I mean, Taylor Motter's a former Mariners, and you like him because he's a hustle guy, he's an energy guy, but that's it. I mean, he can play a little bit of defense. He can kind of play everywhere. That's nice, but you're not getting anything from him. I mean, I get that the Cardinals saying that they want Walker to get at bats, but the dude can kill AAA pitching. He doesn't need time AAA pitching. The dude needs to continue to feast or at least be challenged at major league pitching because that's the only way he's going to get better. And if you're a bad team, the best way to go about getting better is give your young guys playing time to see what they can do, see how they handle the adversity. Now, Walker hasn't had any adversity right now other than playing time, but the guy can hit. I mean, what the Cardinals really need to do is they really need to be on the phone trying to make some trades to free up some playing time for some guys. I mean, you've got Jordan Walker, Tyler O'Neill, Alec Burleson, Dylan Carlson, all guys that can play the outfield, and you've only got 3 spots. So you're constantly rotating those guys through, trying to keep them hot. Tommy Edman, and then you got Paul DeJong that's kind of had a nice couple games back, or like at least a good game back. So yeah, I think the Cardinals, they've got too much talent and they could really use an ace for that rotation. They don't have one. Miles Michaelis is nice. Adam Wainwright used to be an ace, but at this at this point he's not, and he's currently hurt. So he'll come back. I'm sure he'll do fine. But they don't have an ace guy. Jake Flaherty was looking like it. Then he had a couple of seasons with injuries, and he's starting to look like he's rounding into form. A little bit on the wild side, like he's still got a lot of walks. But you know, the Cardinals could use a deal or two to free up some spots to get some guys some playing time, and then to better themselves in their rotation. You look at their bullpen; it's not too bad, but I think a big shock has been the lack of dominance from Ryan Helsley, who was kind of lights out last year for him. He's looked kind of mortal. He's looked like a classic stereotypical bullpen guy, having a great year and then, not so much. I mean, he's 3 of 6 on saves. Not exactly what they were hoping for. So it's interesting, and the Cardinals being bad. I'm not ready to say they're done or anything like that. Obviously, it's way too early in the season. They've got too much talent, I believe, to continue to struggle. But it's not good right now. Right now, they are the underperforming team in that NL Central. And we touched on about the Pirates being great. I mean, that's also shocking in its own right that the Pirates are winning the division. So NL Central, in my opinion, is the craziest division right now. Rafal, are you in agreement with me on that? That the NL Central is the most topsy turvy, upside down
Yes.
division?
there's too much going on, honestly, to really. I mean, the Dodgers were at one point underperforming, but they've kind of picked it up in the past week or so. They started winning more games. They kind of had a nice series against the Cubs.
Mhm.
But I'm guessing we both can say Padres.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
solid guess. I mean, Soto is just been completely nowhere. He's fallen off the map. He's hitting 178. Machado's hitting 214. So where else you got to go?
yeah.
There's really nowhere else to go if your top two guys aren't hitting, which is what your lineup is based on. Those
I
top
mean,
three guys, pretty much, and then the rest of the lineup is kind of been morbid, also. So you need those guys to step up, and that just hasn't been happening. So I guess we can
they
say Padres.
Yeah, I mean, and they got Tatis back, and I mean,
That's nice.
he's struggled as well. But I mean, it's he hasn't been back for very long, so like let's give him some more time. But yeah, I mean, their star players are not doing what people are expecting them to do, and and the Padres are, I'd say, a great example of a team that expecting their stars to do star things, and the rest of the guys just to kind of do what they do because they don't necessarily need those guys to be above their weight class, so to speak, or anything like that. Like, you can have Machado, Soto, Tatis, Bogarts. Those guys basically carry the offense because those guys are the stars of the game. So, yeah. The other thing is their rotation hasn't been quite as good either. Yu Darvish had a bad start, left with cramps in his leg. Um, so we'll see. I mean, the NL West, though, I think is a division that the Padres can still win, but it's a tougher division, I think, than a lot of people thought going into the year. And right now, Diamondbacks are in first at 14-12, just a half game above the aforementioned Dodgers and a game and a half above the Padres. So, there could be some changing of the guard here next time we do a show and next time we talk about underperforming teams in the division. But for right now, I think we need to mark this episode down as the first time that we agreed on everything. I can't think of a disagreement that we had.
I, we went perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered six divisions and 6 for 6. I just want to add one more thing about the Padres because I just think we need to give it a little more time to get the division to shake out a little more because I still feel that there's a lot games left to be played, around close to 140 games left in the season. There's
Mhm.
still a lot of time for the division to shake out a little bit, settle, and for those teams like the Dodgers and Padres to really find a rhythm. But I think that's just time. And obviously, we're not going to see Soto and Machado play at such a replacement level caliber for such a long time. But we just need them to start hitting and making contact, and you know, being Machado and Soto, because that's who they are, I guess. But
Yeah.
let's wrap things up. First episode, and again, so we can things get fun, and if there's a lot to discuss. So again, guys, check us out on YouTube, share with friends, give us a like, subscribe to the Replaceable Level Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts now. And hope you guys enjoy this one.